Live from the American Gulf Coast, it's the Dave Nemo Show.
I have just had a wonderful conversation with Dr. Melissa Wikoff. She is with us. She founded Peachtree Hearing back in 2026. She's a doctor of audiology, going to Washington University in St. Louis in the School of Medicine. And of course, she is licensed to practice audiology in the state of Georgia, which is where she is at Peachtree Hearing. And Dr. Wikoff, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
I don't know if you say Happy Tinnitus Awareness Week, but it is Tinnitus Awareness Week. So thank you for making this date special around here.
Thank you, and thank you for acknowledging it. This is such an important issue that people don't often realize until they've got it. So thank you for having me on and talking about it. This is so important to us.
One of the things that we had that I learned in our conversation just a moment ago is that you have a busload of truck drivers as patients there at Peachtree Hearing. So you know about the trials and tribulations of hearing problems, hearing loss, tinnitus, and everything out there on the road with all of the other attendant noises that go around. And you've got some observation about that. But I also want to tell everybody on the road right now, this is a great opportunity to call in and talk to Dr. Wikoff one-on-one. The phones are open, and she'd love to hear from you. 615-292-6366. Maybe you have tinnitus and you're successfully dealing with it. And there are some things that Dr. Wikoff is going to tell us about. But I was telling you, Dr. Wikoff, that earlier on in the program was telling the story about the guy who called me one night on the radio. He was driving a truck, and he said that this tinnitus was killing him. And he was talking about tinnitus, and I didn't know what it was. You know, I was 20 years old and just got started. He explained what it was. He was like ringing in his ears. He can't stop it, and nobody else here. And he went through the whole thing, and I called it tinnitus for years. And then I realized, wait a minute, Dave, you got to knock out a few of those little extra letters. It's tinnitus. And then we talked about tinnitus or tinnitus, and you gave the perfect explanation of why the real pronunciation is tinnitus. So tell us about what the problem with itis is.
You got it. So we get tinnitus, tinnitus, tendinitis, but there's no wrong way to pronounce it. But in the medical community, we like to say tinnitus because the pronunciation itis assumes that that's the disease. And tinnitus is really the symptom of something else. And so when you come to see us, what we're trying to figure out is, what is this a symptom of? What is going on here? And in the driving community with truck drivers and RVers, even sometimes radio DJs who are listening to noise all day long, it can be from exposure to all of that.
No, wait. No, we make the noise. We don't listen to it. We make it.
Fair enough. You make great noise. But, in your truck, you've got to think about, you've got road noise. There might be a CB radio. There's a horn. There's traffic, and there is even a diesel engine. And I know that trucks are so much more, innovative and luxurious than they used to be, and they try and quiet those cabins, but you can still feel sound can travel through the air or through what's called bone conduction. So even driving in that truck, you can almost feel the noise sometimes. So we want to make sure that everybody's protected and taking care of themselves.
It goes back to a Latin word called tenere, which simply means to ring. And so the common equation is, well, I have tinnitus and therefore I have ringing in my ears. But it's not just ringing, is it? There are other sounds that you're hearing as well, correct?
Be beeping, clicking, humming. Often people will come in and I will ask them, we try and match the pitch and the volume of their ringing to help figure out what's going on. And they'll tell me, well, it's not exactly a ringing. Maybe I hear crickets or cicadas or a buzzing, a humming. Tinnitus is truly any noise that you perceive that nobody else can hear. There is a kind of tinnitus that there's something wrong with blood flow in the body. I've had it once in my entire career, and I've been doing this since 2009 pretty heavily. But Only once in my career have I actually been able to hear the noise coming from someone's head, and that's when there's a physiological issue in the body.
Wow.
It's generally something that you hear that isn't really there in the environment.
But you actually could hear it. That just standing next
I
to the
could
person?
one time.
What did it sound like? What was it?
So she was having a heartbeat or a thumping sound,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the result of an issue with one of her blood vessels where it was blocked, and we can actually hear the thumping in her head.
Wow, wow. Okay. What were you able to help her? Well, I guess you turned her over to
We
a
got her to the
cardiologist.
right person.
I guess.
You got it. So I'm an audiologist. That's a surgical fix, and that's a win. Generally, it is treatment by you'll go see an audiologist, and they'll evaluate what's going on, and then we'll come up with a plan to help treat you. And what we want to do is, I think, in the field of tinnitus, so many people come and see me and they tell me there's nothing that can be done. I've been to the ENT, I've been to this, audiologist or that primary care, I've been to my cardiologist, and they just say, have to learn to live with it. But when you hear have to learn to live with it, that can be so debilitating. And then your brain starts to ruminate or think on it that I'm stuck with this the rest of my life. No one else can hear this. And you start to panic. And that's where I come in. I want to be your cheerleader. We are going to figure it out. And you do not have to learn to live with this. There are so many treatments. It's just, there's no one size fits all with this. We've got to figure out what's right for you.
I'm going to ask you like maybe the dumbest questions you've ever heard.
No such thing.
Tinnitus. It's a real thing, but only I can hear it. It's driving me nuts. Is it real in terms of there is a physical a physical manifestation of something that's actually happening?
It is.
Or, okay, are there folks who think they have tinnitus but don't really have tinnitus? Does that make sense to you?
Yep. So if you think you have tinnitus, you have tinnitus. Think about it like phantom limb syndrome, right? So your arm is no longer there, but you feel this pain that you used to have in your arm. Your brain is usually creating something in absence of a stimulus that it's expecting to hear or missing. So there's something going on in the brain where it's trying to give you information that you're missing. Hearing loss isn't always the cause in tinnitus, but it is a very, very common cause. So when it is a hearing loss, your brain heard sound your whole life at a certain pitch. And all of a sudden, or slowly over time, that sound is missing. And the way it works in your brain, it's a use it or lose it phenomena. So, and I'm talking with my hands over here, and I know we're on the radio, you can't see me, but imagine you're exercising and you're working out a muscle, but you stop exercising for a while, that muscle starts to atrophy. Well, it's a use it or lose it phenomenon in the brain. So your brain is trying to fill in the gaps here. And how brilliant is that of the body that the brain can fill in what's missing? And the brain does that because of this use it or lose it phenomena. Hearing loss can lead to cognitive decline, memory loss, isolation, depression, anxiety. So it's your brain trying to prevent all this stuff, which is actually pretty cool. But when it makes this noise that it's trying to help your body with, it's actually more annoying, more irritating, and you can't escape it, and it can become frustrating and debilitating. So as brilliant as it is, it's much more irritating than it is brilliant. But that's really the mechanism of what's happening in most cases.
I want to so we're going to take a break here, but we're going to do that now. And when we come back, today is Ronald Reagan's birthday, and one of the facts about him was back in 1983, he said he had a hearing aid because he had some age-related hearing loss. The company that made his hearing aid Starkey Laboratories quadrupled their sales because of that, and he took the stigma away. Well, let's talk about that a little bit when we come back.
Hello, this is Ton Ostergaard, Chairman of Creek Carrier, Schaefer Trucking, and Hunt Transportation. Even with the ups and downs of the economy, we continue to deliver the products families across the country need every day, and we don't use brokers. A great trucking company must have great drivers to be successful, which is why we need you to grow. If you're looking for a family-owned, debt-free, driver-focused company, contact us at creekcarrier.com. Talk to our drivers. With the lowest driver turnover in the industry, we must be doing something right.
When professional drivers need fuel and repair, they join Travel Centers of America's Ultra One loyalty program to make their downtime even more rewarding. Ultra One members can earn points on fuel, repairs, and parking reservations, and you can redeem them in-store or at participating restaurants, and for showers, parking, and Wi-Fi. Manage your loyalty account right in the app and use the Pump Smart feature to check fuel prices and initiate the pump right from your cab. Download Truck Smart today.
White line neon signs have always been my home. Give me the highway, 'cause I was born a rolling stone.
Speaking of Ronald Reagan, he said we can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. So I certainly hope, and I know Dr. Melissa Wikoff hopes, that our program this morning will help someone out there who might be suffering with tinnitus. And again, we're going to circle back to Ronald Reagan, though. He kind of destigmatized and is credited for that back in the early 80s, Dr. Wikoff. Is one of the, can hearing aids help? In other words, is that a first line of defense?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It is. It's certainly one line of defense. So the way that hearing aids work for tinnitus, I call it sound therapy. And we treat a lot of people with hearing aids for tinnitus. And the stigma, I treat teenagers, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s. It's not really an age-related thing. And luckily, our society or our culture is shifting where it's great that you're treating your healthcare needs versus, worrying about what wearing a hearing aid might do for you.
Yeah.
What's pretty cool, if you think of it, I call it the candle analogy with tinnitus. So it's a little cheesy, but go with me here. I want you to imagine that we're in a restaurant, a fancy restaurant, and I'm going to turn off all the lights. But if you light a candle in the middle of the table, you think of that flame like your tinnitus. When you're in the dark, all you see is that flame. So when you have a hearing loss or your brain is craving this sound but it's missing it, all it can focus on is that tinnitus. When I fit you with hearing aids, and it's done the right way, so not just any hearing aid, you want to see, someone who really understands tinnitus, is going to take care of you. We're going to program them in a way so what happens is it's like taking a dimmer switch on the wall, and we're slowly brightening the lights, slowly turning on the lights, enhancing the room. So all of a sudden, if you think about this visually, your eyes see the food on your plate, the pattern on the china, the silverware, the drink in your glass, and your friends at the table, and the people at the next table, the servers and the cooks in the back, and the art on the wall. And now, all of a sudden, the room is so bright, you can't even see that frame. And that's kind of how it works with hearing aids. And sound is that not only have we filled in the gaps of what's missing, but we're enhancing everything else so it dulls your own internal noise.
That is one of the best explanations of anything I've ever heard. Wow,
Oh,
I can
that's
see
kind
that.
of you.
Pun
Thank
intended.
you.
Pun intended.
Great.
Got it. So, in a sense, the noise that you hear with tinnitus is really background noise that may be in everybody's head. And when you think about it, if it's down low enough that you don't hear it, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around, does it make a sound, so to speak? Well, I don't know if that fits or not, but I love to bring out these old slogans.
It's perfect. Think about it this way, that your brain, we've got this internal fight or flight way about how we think. And so your brain is constantly making decisions all day. Is this important? Is this not important? And so sometimes with tinnitus, your brain has just coded that sound as a threat, as something important, as something to pay attention to. And so my job is to work and figure out, all right, how are we going to recode this as unimportant, as non-threatening?
Sometimes our brains are not as smart as we think they are they?
I think sometimes they're too smart.
Goodness. Okay, so we kind of talked about what it is, how it affects folks, and I would imagine that prevention strategies go in one ear and out the other, just like putting sunscreen so you don't get that left arm tan in trucking kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But these are some things that are practical, and these would be your first start, right? Absolutely first.
So just managing the volume levels in your cab, right? So you can't use an earplug because you've got to hear what's going on the road. We do make special driving, or we call them musicians' earplugs, which have a filter. So this filter can block out the harmful noise, but you can still hear what's going on.
I use those.
Protecting your ears when you can.
They work. Let me just.
But we don't. Sure.
Just on a personal note, because drivers out there who think they don't work, I play a percussion in a rock band, and it's loud, and I use those earplugs, and they work. So I just want to put that endorsement out there. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
And you mentioned sunscreen. I'm going to give you one more analogy. We use it for musicians, but it's the same for drivers. I want you to think about, you go out in the sun, you get a couple freckles, or you forget to put, your left hand is in the sun, your left arm's in the sun when you're driving all day, you forget, and it gets a tan, but then it fades. Or you get a couple freckles and it fades. You get a burn and it goes away. But then one day there's a melanoma, right? So it's kind of the same with tinnitus and hearing loss and noise, is that, you forget to wear your earplugs, or, that horn was blasting, or whatever is going on and there's noise, you forgot about it, and then your ears ring the next day, but it fades. And the same thing happens and it fades, and then one day you wake up and your ears are ringing. So you do want to be mindful about maybe taking breaks when you're supposed to take a break, getting that blood flowing, going for a walk, rolling your ankles and your feet when you can, kind of moving your arms, shifting your body around, getting that blood flowing. We're on the radio, and I want you to listen to the radio. We love the radio, but take a break or turn it down, because we don't want to add extra noise on top of the engine noise and everything there. So trying to manage those levels is one of the best things that you can do. I don't know if you've ever noticed that you've been driving for a while, and the volume seems completely fine, and then the next morning you turn the car on, and the radio sounds so loud, because your brain over time slowly got used to it, the noise, and it didn't seem so loud. You just keep inching it up, but it's really, really loud. And then you get home, and your wife is like, I know you had a good day, but can you turn your voice down? You're so loud.
Yes to both. Yes to both of those. Before we run out of time here, Dr. Wikoff, and you sent down some notes, and I really appreciate that, but we're talking about, I guess, the tried and true methods of controlling, and are we curing tinnitus or just controlling it? Is that another question that you get a lot?
So we're mostly controlling it, but there's no cure. I don't want anybody out there to feel hopeless, because there's so much we can do to manage it and make it go away and make your brain completely forget you ever even had it. My ultimate goal, if you come to my office, is for you to forget you even met me. I want you to live your life as if this was never a problem in the first place. And we can get there. It's just so unique to each individual person. There's no magic pill for this. There's no one size fits all. So there are treatments. There's something called bimodal neuromodulation that we're doing. It's something called Linear, which has been a great success. There's sound therapy with hearing aids, tinnitus retraining therapy, sometimes cognitive behavioral therapy. There are all kinds of things. There are even free apps on your phone. But what you and I do is different from anyone else that walks in the door. So I think the first step is finding a professional who understands tinnitus and then figuring out where to go for you.
One of the things that a driver told me that in terms of his medical card, you have to get a medical exam every 2 years if you're in good health, and if you're not, then it could be 1 year or 6 months and things like that. But every time you go in, you get the hearing test, and it's pretty much the whisper test. You know, they stand behind you. Can you hear this?
Yeah, I don't know who's doing that.
Yeah.
you really should be going and getting a full hearing test. I mean, knowledge is power, right? Knowing what's going on in your body. I think the ears are the window to so many other things going on in the body that it's great. Just go get a hearing test once a year, once every other year. Once you're at the age of 40, you really should get a hearing test every other year.
You know, one of the things, too, when somebody else tells you that you're not hearing, like my wife telling me that I'm not hearing her when she's speaking, if somebody else is telling you that you have a hearing problem, is it sort of like tinnitus? If somebody thinks you have a hearing problem, you have a hearing problem?
No, it's a great question. But really, if someone thinks you have a hearing problem, go get a test. And if it's making you upset that they keep saying you have a hearing problem and it's frustrating you, go get a test and prove them wrong. That's my favorite thing to do, is do a test and there's a spouse, or maybe it's just earwax in your ears. You need that wax removed. That's really my favorite thing to do is, someone keeps saying that their spouse can't hear them. We look in their ears. It was just wax. We took it out and then everything's, perfect again. So it could be anything, but going to get a checkup can I think it's like an ounce of prevention,
Yeah, for sure. Tell us about Peachtree Hearing. The website is peachtreehearing.com. If you go to radionemo.com this morning, you will just scroll down past those beautiful pictures of everybody, and you'll see today's program notes and click on the link there. But you started Peachtree in about 2016?
I did. So my grandfathers lost their hearing. They both lost their hearing in World War II. And so I wanted to become an audiologist because I wanted to find a better way to help them. And so I opened this private practice. I'm in Marietta, Georgia. We're a suburb of Atlanta. We actually have people fly in all over the country for tinnitus treatment. I'm on the board of directors at the American Tinnitus Association. So we specialize in hearing loss, treating hearing loss, hearing aids, ringing in the ears. We have a viral YouTube for making ear mold impressions for musicians and drummers like you, and earwax removal. So we do a lot of that. It's a lot of fun. But we've got a private practice. It's myself. I've got Dr. Alex Culverson with me as well, and we can test your hearing. We do consultations.
Go to the website, radionemo.com, click on today's programming, or go to peachtreehearing.com. Dr. Melissa Wikoff, thank you so much for being with us on the program here this morning on Tinnitus Awareness Week.